Have you ever found yourself in a relationship you think like you're not really sure, it's not defined, and we've been calling them in culture situationships. And so today we have our Gen Z counselor, Claire from CrawfordClinics.com, and she is going to help us unpack all the mystery, weird situations we find ourselves in situationships, and how to get out of those, recognize when you're in it, and actually make the choice to go into healthy, vibrant choices that lead into your right person. So thank you, Claire, for being our Gen Z counselor at Crawford Clinics.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been such an honor working with you, and I'm so excited to unpack this with you today.
Absolutely. Okay, so what do you think is the trend that people are seeing? Because it's not just Gen Z, like the world is in this situation place. What are you seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that today more than ever, we are in a season of exploring self. All of us are discovering who we are. We're living our lives online and constantly evaluating what we're doing, who we're interacting with, and there's an element of casualness happening in today's society. And so as we're entering dating with the influx of social media and online dating and everything, there's endless amount of options and endless amount of choices. And so that leads us to maybe want to have all those options open. And so we're seeing this increase of situationships, which are dating without a lot of boundaries or rules. There's a lot of role confusion and just lack of responsibility in a situationship.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when we're in those situations, what do you think keeps us from speaking up or clarifying or making that like, this is the line or this is the label of what we're doing?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fear right now about what that means to demand someone's time and attention and that commitment. If you reach forward and ask, what does this mean? What does this look like? There's a fear of losing somebody. A fear of what that might look like for you to be alone or having to find some other options. And there also might be a fear of what that commitment will look like, because not only is this person committed to you, but now you're also obligated to be committed to them as well. So what if someone else comes up that's more interesting and fun? Now you have a responsibility to communicate and interact with another person. And so I think that that's a part of it as well.
Yeah. And normally in life, we have kind of two ditches, right? Like we have the side where people just jump in a relationship and they don't take enough time to explore and talk and see, is this someone I'm actually compatible with versus just kind of codependent and meshed, be in a relationship. And on the other side, there's the keep the options so open, kind of that swipe culture, whether it's in person or a dating app, and not ever committing. What do you think could help us find that middle space?
Yeah, definitely. I think finding your own boundaries for yourself, how much you're willing to dive into a relationship before it's official. So maybe in that dating phase, figuring out how much you're willing to be physical with someone, how much you're willing to share, how much you're willing to give. A situationship really drives from having a lot of emotional and physical things happen really quickly with no labels. And then on the other end, you have a full commitment where you're giving everyone everything, the title, the name, and everything. So where are your boundaries? What's your line?
I love that. And a lot of times, like even the research is showing, we're preparing for divorce. We're preparing for emotional affairs, physical affairs, if we're not careful, because you're in a mindset that when this person is an option, you're not actually investing into community, connection, a deeper sense of investing versus they're a commodity, right? Like this person is fun and entertaining for as long as I want them to be. And then we have a lot of ghosting and back and forth. And so you're really playing with people's hearts and your own heart. And so we're teaching ourselves how to be able to quick eject button when things get hard. So can you share some stories that she agreed ahead of time that she'd be willing to do this? Some of your own story or whatever you feel comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we were talking about situationships, I kind of was thinking about my perspective on dating as I was, in that phase of life, mostly entering college. Before college, I never really dated. I didn't have a lot of experience with boys. No one was really interested in me in that way. And so when I walked into college, I was like, this is my time to explore. I'm gonna date so many guys, I'm gonna meet so many people, and I'm gonna say yes to everything. And so I was in my yes man era when I met my sweet husband. And so we were walking through this phase of life where he's asking me on dates and he's being so respectful. He's showing up and picking me up and driving me, and we're going on these official dates. And my system was so shocked because up until this point in my yes man era, I was entering situationships where I was hanging out with guys, and particularly I think of an example, my freshman year of college where I met this boy, and I immediately dove right into, oh my gosh, he's so cute. And I just fantasized about what this would be like if we dated. We were messaging all the time. We were hanging out in really casual environments. We were, cuddling. I was investing so much, but there was no commitment on his end. And so I was just expecting this to lead to a place of commitment. I was just kept expecting for something to happen. And when he would withdraw and I wouldn't hear from him for days, it would lead to this space of anxiety. Yeah. And so this is my expectation of what dating looks like. And I walk into a relationship with my husband and he is being so intentional and really taking the time to pursue me. And it was a shock to my system. And so when we had been talking for a while and dating, he asked me to be his girlfriend. And my first reaction was just like, oh my gosh, maybe? So I wasn't sure what that looked like. And I started a conversation with him where I was like, well, what if, fun idea, we did all those things you're talking about, be exclusive, really spend a lot of time together, we go on dates, we hang out, we kiss, but what if we didn't call it boyfriend and girlfriend? What if we just hang out? Situationship. I, at that moment in time, had no idea what I was asking him to enter into with me. I was living in fear of what kind of responsibility I was going to have to this person, the commitment that it would be. What if I failed? What if people found out I was dating this guy at our college and then we broke up and everyone knew? That's so awkward. And so I had all these things running through my head when he was asking me that question. But what I didn't realize is that he was really honoring me and respecting me by bringing that title to me. And he in turn was asking for honor and respect. And by asking him to live this relationship with no commitment, I was being extremely hurtful to him. And so we walked that phase and he walked me through that conversation. I mean, in that night, he really opened my eyes to what I was walking into and what I was asking of him and what my perspective of dating really looked like, and changed everything for me. And
I think that's the hard thing, because we live in a culture that has normalized situationships, that it's almost considered a phase of dating, that you're talking, you're in a situationship, and then eventually maybe we're going to turn into something. So some people love the high. Like you get ghosted and then you get back together and it's like really great and makeup and all this stuff. And so there's like an intensity of that. And I know you had a friend you were describing that there's like really intense, amazing, and then it's like nothing. What's that like, walking with a friend in that season and like the whiplash?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really hard to watch a friend walk through that. I have a friend who met some guy online and it was so great from the beginning. And she's just talking to him and, oh my gosh, he's amazing. And they decided to continue talking and there's no labels and they become physically intimate. And at that point, she had really locked into that this is something serious, but there's nothing holding either of them accountable. And so there was almost this like panic, and having to sit through that with someone is really hard, walking them through that phase of life and kind of the emotional instability that's happening. And it can be really exhausting as a friend to sit there with someone when like you're making a choice that might not be good for you.
Yeah. And it's absolutely creating an addiction, right? It's a toxic love addiction cycle, weird thing where, I mean, I shouldn't even use the word love because it's not actual love. It's this euphoria like a drug. So it activates the dopamine reward pathway because they came back. And what most people aren't considering over here in psychoanalysis, where we do deep therapy stuff, you don't have to know those terms, we have an attachment style. And our greatest need is to feel worthy of someone else choosing me. And the hard thing is most humans on the planet have a longing for the unavailable love object to want me. What that means, psychology language, I'll dissect it. What that really means is I have a desire for the parent that wasn't as emotionally available. They could have been in your life, but maybe they were just distracted, they were workaholic, they had kind of neutral facial expressions, or maybe they weren't there, or maybe they passed away, or whatever, right? And so most of us have a craving that the person who's unavailable will finally be the one who affirms that I'm enough. Now, we then grow up and we don't know that psychology is down there in our unconscious mind. And so the people that do pursue you and are interested, for when we have an unavailable love object template on the inside, then those people are boring. Like the one that's like showing up and committed and available, you're like, I don't know, I just don't get excited. I don't have the high. It's not like the sex isn't as great or the whatever based on what my clients describe, right? But on the other side, the person that's unavailable, they're a mystery. They're always ghosting you and then they come back and it's like this really euphoria. And it doesn't even have to be abusive as much as it's replicating that unconscious desire for the person who's unavailable to finally choose and want me. Now, here's the clincher. let's say the unavailable person, the person like your friend is dating. They met on the dating app and I think he from the beginning said, I'm not good for you. It's not going to work out, but we can hook up, come over tonight. And so she's in that season, even if he were to marry her, even if that little girl fantasy, we're now in a relationship, it will still never fulfill and satisfy our unconscious needs. Our relationships today can never actually satisfy an unconscious need. That's why we have to do our own work, our own therapy. Relationships today do not fix our family of origin wounds. So that unconscious desire for the unavailable person now gets translated to the person at the gym, or the person on social media DMing you. That's why we're actually preparing for divorce. We're preparing for affairs by staying in situationships, because you're psychologically not forcing yourself to confront our attachment issues. It's when you're in a relationship that all this stuff comes up, and you have the opportunity to go to CrawfordClinics.com and book your appointment so you can work through all your stuff. But if you're not doing that because you're in one situationship or another, and you're jumping from here to here, and you're telling yourself it's light, it's easy, it's exploring your options, you're actually staying in an avoidant attachment style. And a book we use a lot at Crawford Clinics is the book How We Love. And there's a complimentary assessment that you can do and start finding out, what is my attachment style? Why am I drawn to somebody who's unavailable? Or why do I want to not fail? Or why do I keep pushing people away and sabotaging it? Or why do I cling even when the other person is pushing you away? Those are all dynamics that were set up unconsciously, and then it creates a rush, a euphoria to be in that relationship, hoping this time they'll choose me. But you probably have a broken picker, because that part of you that's younger is chasing after what's unavailable. If you get it, now you don't want that anymore, and you want the one that's unavailable still, because that unconscious need is still not being met. And we've seen it a lot when we work with couples in couples counseling, where they get married young, there's really intense, there's lots of love, there's all this great stuff, and then later they drift apart. They don't know how to stay committed, because one or both are looking for the unavailable, the high, the drug, the euphoria part of a relationship, instead of a slow, steady, love hormone oxytocin that turns into the hormonal bonding of movies like The Notebook, where it's like the elderly couple that's like hugging at the end. Those are the kinds of attachment bonding hormones you want, but it actually is blocked when we stay in situationships. So going back to your story, it kind of freaked you out, which I've heard other people say. Like, if a guy asks for a girl's phone number, somehow he's like extra, and it's like too much, and it's weird. Which, how sad is that everything has to be done on social media? Different generation, yuck. Anyway, so for you, when he's offering, hey, I'm actually wanting to commit, I want to exclusively get to know you with intentionality and pursue you, what was that like to kind of navigate through that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we were having that conversation, what was coming up for me was just a lot of feelings of like fear in regards to being obligated to take care of someone else. I really was in a place where I was thinking that, okay, everyone's going to see this online on social media. I'm going to have to tell people I'm doing this. What if they don't think he's cool? And what if I don't do a good job of taking care of him? I want out. I want to be able to break up with him when I want without having to have a real conversation. This is not healthy at all.
But you're in college.
Yeah, I was like I was 19 years old when this was happening. So there was just a lot to walk through. And so it was really off kilter for me to be in a situation with someone who was really calling for me to be a grown up and be held accountable and have that respect and responsibility. And so I think he was so wonderful and strong in holding fast to his boundaries. I think that's a beautiful depiction of how I, as a person who wanted a situationship, was called to a different standard, and kind of had my motivations of what a relationship looks like questioned, and how that really fostered into a beautiful relationship that turned into a marriage.
Aww. And he's the cutest. His name is Chase, and he comes to game nights.
Yes.
We have team bonding at Crawford Clinics. Secret Hitler. It's kind of a scary game. He's really good at it.
I love Secret Hitler. Plug for the game. So fun.
So fun.
But he was really had a culture of like honor, and just, I mean, even like as our relationship continued, I still was having to fight against this desire to maybe not be attached and not give as much. I know the week after he asked me to be his girlfriend, I kind of went AWOL. I wasn't seeing him around campus. I wasn't texting him enough probably at all. I hadn't seen him in like 5 days.
Definition, I ghosted him.
Yeah, I ghosted him. I ghosted my boyfriend that like a day after he asked me to be his girlfriend. And he was so wonderful and established communication. He said, hey, if we're going to date, you need to be committed to this. We need to be able to see each other. What's going on? And so he really held my hand and was able to be that smooth and steady like connection that we were talking about. I was fearful in our attachment, and he was able to remain steadfast and even. I remember, I know y'all probably know the term ick.
Yeah.
He gave me the ick so hard one day.
Which I think we have to highlight that,
Yeah.
but keep going.
Yeah, he gave me the ick so hard one day. He rode up to a date with me on campus on a bike, and for some reason, to me, something about a grown man on a bike just really was not it for me. And so I look at him in his weird outfit on his bike, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. We're done. I went home, and I was like, let me write a pros and cons list, because now we're boyfriend and girlfriend, so I have this fear of failure. And pressure. Oh my gosh, people are going to see. People know. We go to a small Christian school. Everyone's going to know that I broke up with him, and it's been like a week. And so on my pro and con list, I'm writing cons. I'm writing rides a bike, wears long basketball shorts, maybe needs to moisturize. And on my pros list, I'm like, makes me feel safe, can communicate, like has a good sense of humor. And I'm looking at this list and I'm like, well, I have to break up with him. This is logical.
His character,
Yeah.
but he dresses for me.
And so I was just so sure that this was not going to be a good relationship. It's really displaying some unhealthy attachment I had at the time. And I went and talked to him and I said, so let's just be friends. Let's talk all the time.
Get all the emotional benefits.
Yeah. Part 2 of me proposing a situationship. I said, let's be friends. I don't want to lose you. You make me feel secure. You make me feel like myself. I really enjoy you as a person. I think you're so wonderful, but dating, you ride a bike. That's really weird. And so he really challenged me that time. He was like, we're not going to be friends. This was a hard boundary he set for himself. He said, I'm not going to be friends with a girl that I've dated. That's not going to be healthy for me. I want a committed girlfriend. We're either going to date, and I think you want to date. You've said that I make you feel good. You said you like me, but where's the disconnect happening for you? And so he really pulled me, he held my hand through this desire, because culturally I'd been told, okay, you're supposed to explore. Why are you committing? This is too fast. Even though we'd been going on several dates and knew each other pretty well at this point, I was like, this is so fast. And
you were friends before that.
And it was just this really weird phase of I did not know how to commit, because it was so counter to what culture had told me I needed to do. And so he really pulled me out of that. Yeah.
That's so good. And I'm thinking even for many of our clients, on one side, you might have friends that are like, hey, guy, girl, whoever you are, these people are not good for you, but yet you're addicted to them. And on the other side, you might have good people in your life and they're like, oh, just explore your options, don't settle down. Be careful of the people that you allow to speak into your life, because now, fast forward, seeing how cute you and Chase are, knowing that background of your story, which I didn't know, all of that. It's so fun. Thank you for sharing on live internet land. How cute you are. So knowing that and looking back, what would be helpful as a friend to be a good, walk in community and walk in light and help somebody process through that?
Yeah, I definitely, when I was writing my pro cons list, I was surrounded by some sweet girls, but they were encouraging me to break up with him. And so having someone and a group around you that really know what you want out of a relationship, who understand that those feelings of security and authenticity is so impactful in a relationship, to really draw out those feelings of bonding that can last a long time. Just really knowing what your values are. And so having friends who can come alongside you and call you out, hey girl, maybe trying to break up with your boyfriend again is probably not the best idea. And diving into maybe what some of those pains are, what I was feeling. No one questioned what was going on, because it's so normal. No one understood where my fears were coming from. There was no curiosity. So approaching your friends with curiosity.
Or your therapist at CrawfordClinics.com.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Crack me up.
Just a sense of curiosity about what's underlying those deep fears, and that maybe fear of commitment.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's go back to the ick, because we can have an ick like discernment, like, whoa, red flag. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something off with this. And then there's just the ick because we've all got stuff and issues and expectations, and you don't look like the GQ, whatever I think you should, or make me feel a certain way. So how did you start to discern between genuine ick versus like superficial ick?
Yeah. Mine were definitely superficial icks because I was in my brain thinking about how I was being perceived by others. I was thinking about how this guy's gonna look on my Instagram grid, what people are gonna think about his outfit, how we're gonna look in photos together. There was everything in the ick was happening in my brain and not in my gut.
You got to repeat that. That's so big.
Everything about the ick was happening in my brain and not in my gut.
Yeah.
I was sitting in a place of, with him, forgetting about the world, forgetting about those perceptions, and really being authentic and laughing and not wanting to stop talking and just feeling so good about myself. And it's when I stepped into the world that I started thinking about that he's wearing 7-inch basketball shorts. And I loved everything about him when we were alone. I really had a deep affection and respect for him. And so those superficial icks are things that are going to change. As you grow old with someone, they're going to look different. The man I met when I was 19 is not the man I'm married to looks-wise at all. So those icks can come and go. He's given me the ick since we've been married. You just have, people are people and they have flaws.
Yeah.
And no one's going to look like what they look like in a magazine or on Instagram or whatever. And so just being mindful of how you feel in your body, what sensations are happening, you know?
That's so good.
I think that that's a really great point to discern between the icks, because if a man doesn't moisturize, you can get him. Yeah, you can help him. And that is what I did. So...
Is he going to hear this?
Hi Chase, I love you, and I'm so glad we took care of your eczema.
You're my bestie.
Love you.
I will not play you Secret Hitler again, Chase, if you hear this. Anyway, so I think now let's transition to what ingredients do make healthy relationships, because it is a little bit of a salmon swimming upstream to actually decide what healthy boundaries, clear communication, conflict resolution. And many times those icks are actually our unconscious triggers. And so back to your point of, if you feel the desire to just like a panic, like I have to run away, this impulse, I can't be in this, that actually is more likely a trigger than a lack of peace. And so when she's describing her inner world, she's saying like this deep sense of like, I feel safe, I feel known, I'm laughing, I feel like I can be myself. All of those are more congruent with your spirit man or your true self. That's where peace or lack of peace resides. It's like a deeper, just quiet knowing on the inside of you. And then your soul, which is your mind, your will, and your emotions. Those are those three areas where our humanity can intercept and start to create an ick that's not a lack of peace, not a discernment of a real issue, but it's actually more of our humanity. Our triggers come through those. And then our desire to be popular or cool or pretty or with the desire fantasy person versus a real human who has flaws, good and bad. So that means if your mind is overly fixated, that would be that mind part of your soul. So you're super in your head, you're thinking about it all the time, you can't sleep, you're just always, odds are good you're triggered. Something else. And don't even make it about the person. I'm not saying be or not be with the person, but if your brain won't turn off, odds are good that's actually your soul, mind, will, and emotion wired to this planet, life experience, likely getting triggered. So you might feel out of control. You might be afraid of abandonment or rejection. You might be afraid of somebody imposing on you, like maybe you had a very enmeshing parent. And the idea of attachment, while you like the fantasy of it, when it becomes real, that can be too much if you've had an enmeshed parent. Or the abandonment, unavailable, like we were talking about before, that when they try to come close, that feels like ick and I have to get away from them. Another is just this intense feeling. So if your feelings are all over the map, odds are good it has less to do with the person and more what they're eliciting and bringing out in you. So I've been joking about CrawfordClinics because I think it's funny to be like a sleazy car salesman in my pitches, but genuinely, you really do need to work through your own triggers because you can sabotage something really great and potentially keep staying in something that's really toxic, and it's going to break and crush your soul and your self-esteem and your worth, and potentially even derail a lot of your career and the calling on your life because you're so fixated on trying to make this work that you're missing deadlines, you're showing up late, you're not getting good sleep, you can't focus on the key things that are a part of your assignment in life currently because this thing is keeping you fixated. So the emotions, if your emotions are a roller coaster, it probably has less to do with the person. It has some more to do with your own triggers that need to be worked on in your own individual therapy. And then third, the impulse. So the impulse of, I just have to call them. I just have to get back together, or I just have to get away from them, or I just have to make this rash decision. And you've thought about it, you calculated, you did your pros and cons, you have community and safeguards, and then all of a sudden you make an impulsive decision, then you know odds are good that's also another sign there's a trigger. So you want to step away from the situation long enough. I'm not saying ghost them. I'm saying in your own personal walk of it's not really about them. Your triggers, your reactions need to be worked on so that then you can get to that still small voice of just knowing that you know. And when that happens, now you can rest making a decision, even if you have ick inside of marriage, like human, normal, all the things, but you're willing to work through it and pursue that covenant marriage, that lifelong older couple love affair of marriage, because you've made the decision based on peace, and then you're willing to work through some of those other things that we all have. So in last words, what would you say to somebody who might be in a situationship and how they can have hope that by leaving it, they really can have something magical?
Situationships can be so hurtful to you as a person. You're unsure. And what a committed relationship provides is just a call to respect and growth. Yeah. And me and my husband's life verse is as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And so the people that you surround yourself and the relationship that you enter into really hones you as a person. And so it's so impactful to choose a person who's going to honor, respect, and commit to you. So yeah, I think you're called to be in committed and respected relationships.
Yeah. Do you want to just do it again? You're called to. Go ahead.
You're called to be in committed relationships where you deserve respect.
Yes. And you also are leading some groups. So leave our friends in internet land about how you're coaching. So we have in-person and virtual groups. So you have two different types. Will you tell us about it? Because it's on the coaching side, not the therapy side, so you can get the skills.
Yes. So these are skills-based groups. We have a group for young girls who are entering high school, or not, high school. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so as we enter high school, we're in a transitionary period. There's a lot of new expectations, a lot of growth. You're maybe entering an online world. And so this group is based in developing skills so that you can interact in a more healthy way online and kind of address some of those fears so that you have safeguards and values in place moving forward.
I love that. Yeah. And I think in particular, if you're a family member, you also want to share this with your loved ones because there's so many people that are just transitioning and we don't have enough support, guidance, infrastructure. So they go through it as a group. There's a lot of skills building and even how to navigate situationships, how to navigate online and DM and all the things that they're going to be experiencing. And then you have the high school into college. Tell us about that group.
Yes. So this is a college-bound group. College is one of the biggest transitions you'll probably ever go to in life. As you exit a home where you maybe have support or friends, and now you're in a new environment doing new things. And so you have new expectations of what school looks like, what community looks like, what dating looks like, and how to communicate with living with a roommate for the first time. And so this is another skill-based group so that you can have a place to address some of those fears and develop safeguards. So when you move forward, you feel really prepared to enter into a new phase of life where you might not know what's going to happen next.
Yeah. And I think just to underscore the fact that the divorce rate is way over 50% and younger people are just not getting married or they're getting married later. If you really want a meaningful relationship, you do the due diligence, right? You put that oxygen mask on your face, you invest in you, and even right now, I'm gonna challenge you, send this to somebody that you're like, I want them to have really great relationships. Our culture is doing this very narcissistic, selfish, get what I want out of people. versus learning how to mature into a love that actually builds a lifelong relationship. So whether it's CrawfordClinics.com for therapy, it's executive coaching with myself, or any of these groups where you're doing these transition time periods and preparing well, you want to invest in yourself, or a million other books and resources. And again, there's attachment style books. So taking those tests, learning those now, so that when it's time, you're ready and you get to enjoy the love of your life. Thanks, guys. See you for the next one. Bye.